Okay, so good morning to everybody. I'm Cynthia Chave. I am project coordinator at the Euro-Mediterranean Economists Association, and I am very pleased to welcome you all for what it is the fourth seminar of the INVESTMED training program. This seminar forms part of a series of 10 seminars, so this is the fourth. And since now we have been, the first 3 seminars were focused on energy transition. So today we are going to begin with a new topic that is circular economy. So for that purpose, as you know, when making the business idea, when building your business models, it's important to understand how to integrate properly circular economy principles. So today we have the fortune to have 3 experts and professionals in these fields from different sectors. So we will have first Giorgio Mosanghini from the Regional Sustainable Consumption and Production Center, Mauro Manca from Energreen, and Victor Falguera from ACIS International. So I will go for presenting first Giorgio. So Giorgio, he's a team leader and green entrepreneurship and civil society from the Regional Activity Center for Sustainable Consumption and Production. He holds a master's degrees in political sciences from Université Libre de Bruxelles and in development studies of the Universitat Autònoma de Barcelona. As well, he has a specialization in impact assessment of development programs and has more than 20 years experience in the international development sector in the Mediterranean and Latin America. He has been responsible of programs related to sustainable entrepreneurship, civil society strengthening, gender and women rights, local and rural development, sustainable development and food security. He's author of several publications and methodological guides on sustainability, circular business models, evaluation, decentralized cooperation, and social communication. So I will be very pleased to give you the floor, Giorgio. So let me stop sharing the screen so you can begin sharing yours. The floor is yours, Giorgio.
Thank you very much, Cynthia. Good morning, everybody. I hope that you can see my screen. You can see my screen, right? The PowerPoint, fine.
Yes, yes.
Excellent. So welcome, everybody. I'm very pleased to be with you today in this webinar. Of course, first of all, I want to thank EMEA and the INVESTMED project to invite us. So we were asked to discuss a little bit how to integrate circular economy through specific strategies for businesses and specifically in the clothing sector, so in the textile sector. Just to begin, just a couple of words about our organization. So I'm working at the Regional Activity Center for Sustainable Consumption and Production. We are a center that is part of the Barcelona Convention. The Barcelona Convention is an international treaty that is signed by all the Mediterranean countries and also by the European Commission, and with the goal to protect the environment in the Mediterranean. So our center, it's a regional center that has the mandate to support the countries and different stakeholders in the transition towards sustainable consumption and production and toward circular economy. One of our main programs of work is called the Switcher Support Program. It's a program that seeks to support the creation of sustainable and circular businesses, because we understand that this is an essential piece to support this transition towards circular economy. And we call them switchers in the sense that those are the entrepreneurs and the businesses that make this switch towards sustainability. And just to share a very brief definition on what we understand that is a sustainable business. Well, a sustainable business is just a business that is not only creating economic value, but also environmental value, addressing ecological challenges and reducing environmental impacts, and also social value, addressing social needs. So what I will share with you today in this brief presentation are some major circular economy strategies that can be applied by entrepreneurs and businesses that we identified, and then discuss some specific aspects for the textile sector. So first of all, how can a business create environmental value? In our view, there are two means strategies that can be applied. On one hand, eco-innovation in order to transform essentially ecological challenges into economic opportunities, and also, of course, eco-design and life cycle thinking in order to reduce the environmental impacts of our business in all the stages of the life cycle of the product. So very briefly, I will share with you what we understand, what is our understanding of eco-innovation. What is eco-innovation? Eco-innovation is essentially providing a new solution, an alternative to current solutions in the market, which allow the company to reduce the environmental impact that is the standard, let's say, in the sector, and to create environmental value. We define 3 levels of eco-innovation also to understand the degree of ambition that can be achieved by the businesses. So the very first step is eco-innovation at process level. So there we are dealing with production processes, and what we will do through eco-innovation is essentially increase resource efficiency and also energy efficiency. So save resources, save energy, and also prevent pollution. For example, if we take the example of cars that are one of an essential piece of our society and a product that has an extremely relevant environmental impact, very, very negative. If we take the example of a car, through a process level eco-innovation, we could produce the exact same car, but with processes that guarantee that we can use less energy, less materials, and that we produce less waste and emissions in the production process. Another level is the product eco-innovation. At this level, we will change the main characteristic of the product in order to achieve a higher environmental performance. Following with the same example, we could transit from a conventional car to an electric car that will improve the environmental performance. And finally, there is the system level eco-innovation. This is really the one that we have to aspire to because of the environmental crisis and the challenges that we are facing at global level in terms of environmental impacts. And here, changes brought by eco-innovation will help us to transform all the system transformation at system level, so in the entire value chain, and also regarding consumer patterns, and the way that consumers use the kind of products that we are offering. With the same example, we could transit from selling cars to customers to implement car sharing systems, for example, that can reduce the environmental impact because the cars are shared by a very high number of people. Or, of course, even better, we could have excellent public transportation systems and bicycle sharing system and so on. So there we see that we will need a total transformation of the system. The second big strategy in order to create environmental value is eco-design. Eco-design consists essentially in analyzing, assess all the stages of the life cycle of a product or even a service, and try to identify the environmental performance at each stage, and also to define environmental strategies in order to improve this performance. everything starts at the design phase. Here it's not shown, but it could be added. No, this image could be also more complex. At design, it's usually said that at the design phase, 80% of the environmental impacts are defined. So at the design phase, we are making choices that will affect all the other stages, and then we will have to assess in depth all the phases. No, material and resources, production, packaging and distribution, use and maintenance, and end of life management of the product. These strategies will also allow, eco-design will also allow to reduce costs for the businesses, because at any stage you will reduce resources, reduce energy, and so on. So in our case, we have identified 5 major strategies for circular economy implementation among businesses that can be identified majorly with some of the phases in the life cycle of a product. These phases, the numbers also refer to an increasing degree of ambition. So the simpler will be the first one, and the most ambitious with higher environmental impacts will be the fifth. Very briefly, the first one will be simply to prevent pollution and save resources, as we said. For example, with eco-innovation at process level, this is linked essentially with raw material and production. Then we have a second strategy that is linked with recovering resources after disposal. Let's say that when a product achieve the end of its life, then we have to guarantee that all resources are kept into the circular economy loop. Third strategy will try to avoid this end of life of the product. So we will try to extend the resource use and reduce the disposal. So in terms, for example, of repairing the product, ensuring that it can be kept in use the maximum time possible, and having a product that is lasting the maximum amount of time. A fourth strategy is linked with increasing the resource utilization rate. Here, what we will do, it's not only trying to have a product that has the maximum amount of lifetime, but also ensuring that the maximum amount of people are using this same product, in order to reduce the overall environmental impact. This is linked with a business model that promote reuse, sharing, etc. This is an increasing trending with sharing economy, collaborative economy models, etc. The fifth strategy is linked with a complete shift to circular supplies and renewable resources. We will see in details when we talk about the example of the textile sector. And finally, we usually talk also about the 5+1, let's say, strategy, which is linked with the demand side. So in order to be successful, the businesses which are implementing all those strategies also need some changes in the consumer patterns, and also in terms of supporting policies by the public authorities and so on. So this is something also that is very important. If we have a look to the textile sector, a very large overview of the main environmental challenges, we know that it's a sector that is mostly completely linear, so very opposed to a circular economy perspective. So it's really take, make, waste kind of production model, and also with a very high fragmentation between the different operation in the value chain. There is a very fast turnover. It's very seasonal with fashion. The fashion trends are very important in the consumption. So products in general have a very short life. So clothes have a very fast turnover. It's based also linked with that, with low prices, low cost workforce, very high social cost, also not only environmental. And in general, the main ecological impacts are linked with water, water pollution, water scarcity, and also air pollution, and the enormous amount of waste that is linked with the different stages of the production. It's considered that the fashion industry is the second largest industrial polluter after aviation, accounting up to 10% of global pollution. If we have a close look to the life cycle impacts of textiles, seeing a little bit the stages in the life cycle, we will see that there is a first phase for the production of fibers, if they are natural or synthetic, and all the raw material that are necessary. Here there is an enormous amount of water that is used, and also a lot of, well, of course, of derived from oil, for the chemicals, for example, fertilizer, pesticides, etc. Then in the production phase, the textile manufacturing, of course, there is also an enormous quantity of water again that is used, with also a lot of pollution in terms of the chemicals that are engaged. In the consumer phase, for example, again we find a lot of water. Of course, we have to wash the clothes and so on. And finally, the end of life, there is as we said, it's a very normally clothes have a very short life, so the amount of waste in general of all the cycle, it's very, very big, also in the production phase. So if we see some details, we can have a closer look to textiles in terms of the different strategies that I mentioned, the five main strategies for circular economy business models. The first one, linked with saving resources and energy, and also reduce pollution. As we saw in the life cycle of the textiles here, we will have to work essentially in the production of the fibers, the production of the natural fibers. So trying to have use less water, be less land demanding, and also less fertilizer, pesticides, etc. This is a major step for this first strategy. So trying to reduce the use of resources and the amount of waste. And of course, also in the production phase, in which the impacts of the textiles are very important in terms of pollution of water and air. So improving the production processes. Here we will be completely in this first phase of eco-innovation at process level. The second phase, which concerns the recovery of resources after disposal. Here, what we will do is try to deal with the end of life of clothes. Once the textiles are not used anymore, we will have to ensure that materials are recycled and upcycled, both considering natural fibers and also synthetic fibers. There are more and more industrial processes also that allow to recuperate not only the natural fiber, but also plastic fibers and so on. So that there is something that is also a growing trend in the industry. An important concept at this level also is industrial symbiosis. So what we can do here is try to ensure that byproducts and waste from a company can be production resources and raw material for other companies and other processes. Very briefly, also for the third strategy here, as we said, it will be linked with extending the clothes lifetime. So this is a very key aspect in the textile sector. As we said, it's a sector that is very fashion driven, so with very short life cycle for the products. So extending the lifetime, it's one of the biggest challenges. Here, design will be crucial, of course, because it's defining this capacity of the textile to have a longer life. So design for durability, design for repairability, so that repairing the clothes is easier. No, we all have a lot of examples, no, of not using a product just because the zipper is broken or whatever. Also, business model could try to offer solution in terms of upgradability. No, if we know that the fashion-driven pressure is shortening the life cycle of the textiles, then we can think about ways to ensure that it can be upgradable in a way and be adjusted to the demands of the clients in the different seasons. Essential business models at this level could also be linked with maintenance and repairing services linked with clothes, and of course everything that is linked with reuse, reselling, second-hand, etc. For the fourth strategy that we mentioned, no, increasing resource utilization rate, here what we will do is focusing on functionality rather than product ownership. So the main strategy for businesses will be servitization, that is transforming selling a product into a product as a service model. So ensuring that the ownership of the product is kept by the company. This is something that has a very important potential in terms of environmental value creation, because by keeping the ownership, the companies have a motivation in order to extend the product lifetime and also to ensure that there are multiple users and the maximum amount of user. As I said before, and this is a growing trend with sharing economy models and collaborative economy models and so on. Normally, those solutions are provided through online platforms, and also in the textile sector, we see more and more initiatives in this sense. Finally, the last strategy, let's say the most ambitious one, and when we imagine a company that is fully sustainable in the textile sector, here we will shift completely towards circular supplies and renewable energies. Then we will have to control the entire value chain, so using bio-based and local products that are all renewable in all the stages of the life cycle. Also, of course, renewable energies in all the stages of the life cycle of the product. And in terms of the technical materials, no, for example, if we have synthetic fibers, then we should ensure that those technical materials are managed in closed loops and are kept inside the circular economy process. This is, of course, linked to what we saw before, and not this eco-innovation level that is the most ambitious one, the system level eco-innovation, because in order to have a control within the entire value chain, this is a very advanced phase for the sustainability of a company, that will have the control and the information about what's happening in all the value chains, so including all the suppliers, ensuring traceability, etc., and having the same goal for sustainability, environmental and social sustainability, over the entire value chain. And also another very important element that we discussed with eco-innovation at system level is that it requires transformation in the consumption patterns. No, here also we will need a completely a very drastic change from consumers. this is promoted, for example, with all the slow fashion movement around textiles, in which there is a collaboration between all the stakeholders, not only the businesses. So I will conclude with some example of sustainable businesses that we have supported in the textile sector. We work in all the sectors, but those are some examples in the textile sectors. Fabricade, it's a very successful social enterprise in Lebanon. They essentially they collect clothes and then upcycle them and offer them in the market. They are different customer segment. The most important for them is the one offering clothing at extremely affordable prices for marginalized communities, but they have also other kind of shops for different segments in order to be profitable and to feed the general the overall business model. They have just received a very important investment of $1.6 million, and they will expand their operation also in Jordan. And this is a very interesting success case. Another example is Skin in Italy. This is a startup that it's very interesting in terms of eco-innovation of the product. So what they are offering, it's an alternative to leather. So they are using waste from oranges collection and production process, and also from cactuses, and they're able to produce a material that is very similar to leather, but in this case with not all the negative environmental impacts that are linked with real leather. Another example is Green Fashion in Egypt. This is a company that collects leftovers and byproducts from textile factories, and they upcycle them, producing textile products, clothes, and fashionable products. And they are also focused a lot in social insertion, say, of having a woman working essentially for them, with, for example, single mothers and which are in difficult situation and so on. So there is this social aspect also in the company, and they operate essentially through a web platform. And finally, Infinite Athletic, this is an experience in Spain, which transformed tennis racket strings into sportwears and garments. And the business model is interesting because it's also based in the involvement of the tennis community, let's say, for example, with the collection system of the racket strings from players, federation, and tennis clubs. And I will just finish encouraging you to register into the switchers.org. This is the platform that supports our program. In there, you will find a lot of methodologies and tools for sustainable business development that are completely free and are available in Arabic, English, and French. For example, tools for develop the sustainable business model or the sustainable business plan, and specific eco-design tools to improve your environmental performance. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Giorgio. It's been a very interesting presentation, and indeed very interesting examples that you're driving and coaching through the Switchers movement. So thank you very much. I think that there are some questions that if you don't mind, we will keep them at the end so we can have an overall roundtable of questions. So,
sure.
Okay, so let me go for introducing our next panelist. It's Mauro Manca. Let me show this. Okay. So Mauro, he's founder and director of Green Design, an architecture design and consultancy practice of circular economy for the building sector, with the purpose of developing a human-centered business model of circular economy for building construction. Energreen works transversally with architects, engineers, contractors, and developers in real estate projects, connecting the value chain of the construction sector during building design, construction, operation, and deconstruction. Mauro is also co-founder and executive director of Fit Buildings, a turnkey service for the energy and sustainable retrofit for sports building. Fit Buildings' value proposition is to promote the sustainable regenerative rehabilitation of a sports building, focused on the opportunity to generate value from users' health, comfort, and environmental impact reduction. So the business model aims at attracting sustainable investments that seek return on energy savings and environmental impact reduction, and up to 100% of the upfront cost of the building renovations. He's also professor of sustainability at International University at Catalonia and a scientific collaborator at Ryerson University of Toronto. He has a wide experience also with Pica Aguilera Arquitectos. And I'm very pleased to welcome you, Mauro. So the floor is yours. You can share your.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for the presentation. Thank you for the previous presentation of Georgia. I think it's gonna be like very a logical consequence of what I'm gonna talk about right now. It's gonna be a different topic, but principles are gonna be basically the same. I'll just go through a presentation right now. I will share my screen. Just let me know if you're seeing.
Yes, it's perfect.
Okay, so we go through the topic of building sector, and I wanna do this just starting from the beginning. All right, with a very common way. Let's go first with a definition of circular economy. Just let's read it together. A circular economy, a circular building approach can be defined as a life cycle approach that optimizes the building's useful lifetime, integrating the end of life phase in the design and uses new ownership models where materials are only temporarily stored in the buildings that act as material banks. That's well, the sentence is so dense of concepts that I just want to go through it and see all the wrap up of my presentation here. So we're talking about life cycle approach. That's a completely different focus than before, since we're developers usually just not usually, but most of the times it's just focus on the end result of a constructed building without focusing so much on the user experience and on the rest of the life cycle of their building, for example. And so the focus shifts on useful lifetime, because as also was mentioned before, we need to think about the performance, the function of our product, whichever this product is. Even with buildings, we are offering an infrastructure for life, for people's life. Okay, so useful lifetime is where the purpose of the building is carried out by basically. And then we need to integrate, of course, the end of life in the design phase, because as we will see, it's always a matter of design. It's not a matter of waste. New ownership models, another focus shift, right? We start thinking about sharing things, sharing spaces in buildings. And if we do this in a very comprehensive way, we will end up thinking about a building as a material bank, since materials are not basically anything. It's ours in this. It's our in this planet. We will just borrow materials and we will design components just for a temporary use in a building, and these materials can be just they can be taken back again at the end of life. of a building. And to do this, to make this effective, of course, we need to trace their value and we need to keep and maintain the value of these materials during the life cycle of the building. So we're talking about value in the end, right? Value, which is environmental, social, and economic. And this is very important because with circular economy, most of the time we usually think about the ecological part of the model, the sustainability based on environmental impact reduction. But if we are not able to make this profitable in terms of economics, we are not pushing any change. We're not able to transform anything, right? So we need to keep in mind that the value has to be a full equipped value with environmental, social, and economic for the full life cycle of the building. And briefly, I want to explain to you how building sector work today, which is again something that you've probably already seen in other linear economy structure. The model is the same: produce, use, and waste. Here is material production for the construction, transportation, and construction, which have a large amount of impact in terms of cost and environmental impact. Then we have the operation phase, which has usually the biggest impact in terms of environmental impact and CO2 emissions, and the deconstruction phase. So talking about circular economy in the building sector is basically, it means to consider the value of each of these stages and make it just valuable again with the traceability of each step up to the end of life. And then, so if we've traced every material, every process up to the deconstruction, we will be able to keep the residual value of this and then just go back and start a new cycle from the end of the previous one. And to do this, the most important part is to work together with all the value chain, because it's an entire sector where there are constructors, engineers, architects, developers, building owners, and first of all, users, people. So we need to start working in a multidisciplinary ground field, focusing on a shared profit for everyone. So everyone needs to undertake a circular model for buildings at the same time, sharing the same objective together. Because if we don't work together in the value chain, we won't make it, basically. It's as simple as that. So what's the value chain? What are the pieces of the scheme? Where there are, as I said, there are different layers that goes from owners to developer to architects, engineers, constructors, and manufacturers, and then a lot of business opportunities that can just come up in during the life cycle of the design and construction phase, the use and the end use phase, right? And then this can, of course, the most important part in the building construction sector, the biggest opportunities rely on the design phase, design and construction phase, where all these professionals have and can and have the opportunity to work together and to share and optimize processes. Think about this. We can even just go up to a lean production or lean construction model, same as for cars, right? So work together and just be better organized and share a common objective with full transparency. Of course, this is also a very important aspect for the construction sector. Everyone has to know what everybody else is doing, and everything has to be traceable in order to just get to know in the end the residual value of the materials, of the processes, of the let's say that just the active of the building, of the real estate intervention we're promoting. One important part of this is the regulation, right? European Commission is pushing a lot towards this in the construction sector, since it's one of the most and the highest consumer of resources, and well, one of the biggest responsible for CO2 emission. European Commission has run a lot of regulation schemes. The one that I like the most is Levels. It takes it's a framework for the design and construction of circular buildings, and it's a really good tool, because it helps you envision from the beginning six macro objectives that goes from CO2 emission reduction, life cycle of materials and resources, water cycle, life cycle cost, economy, climate resilience, very important. Climate change is affecting the way we make business, and it would be a high variable in the equation of investment, since if we're able to predict and reduce risk of investment and risk of operation of those investments, we will be adding some very good allies for a sustainable business model. Health and comfort, which is very important, because we're again talking about a product, complex product, but still we're talking about something that that is for people, for user, and this service has to be of the highest quality if we want to have a successful product. This is the basis of any business model. So in my opinion, and generally in the opinion of the most of the designers in the construction sector, it's a design question. It's not a waste problem. You need to design this first, and then the waste problem wouldn't exist, because we wouldn't just make it. We're gonna erase the concept of waste, since if we trace every piece of our construction, if we're able to keep the value, the residual value up to the end, and we will use prime materials again, which they will be called secondary material because they come from a second life cycle, we will be able to have something that is valuable. We don't want to waste something that is valuable at the end of life. We will be forced and pushed towards the reuse of those materials. So just to make you understand better all this theory of circular economy in building construction, I borrow 5 examples of circular business models. These are taken from a very interesting book. It's the Circular Economy Handbook, which lists the 5 most common circular economy business models. These are business models for every circular economy business, which are circular inputs, sharing platform, product as a service, lifetime extension, and resource recovery. And just let's go specific in the building sector, and let's see how these business models apply in a specific aspect of building construction. And of course, I'm gonna start with energy. Energy, since it's the trend topic of the last 10 years in building construction with zero energy buildings. I'd say energy still is the most important part of building construction, of sustainable building construction. Just, I wouldn't say it's not just energy consumption during operation phase. It's energy embedded in the whole process, starting from material production. And the business model here relies on using something that is basically free and just invest in the infrastructure and sell and recover the investment with a sustainable and a low cost service, right? So here we're seeing that first of all, people are just getting interested. They're getting interested in producing and consuming their own energy, which is, again, a very easy, simple business model. It's a family business model, let's say. And then people can just make little communities and share energy together. So just let's upgrade the scheme and introduce the variable that probably not everyone consume energy at the same time. So we can generate what's it called, a smart grid, where energy is not consumed simultaneously, whereas it's produced quite regularly all along the day. So we can share the same installation, the same energy production plan for different uses. And so just spreading the investment cost. And there are companies that, of course, they're smarter than us, and they already envision this business model. And what they do, they pay you the installation of the photovoltaic panels, and they will sell you renewable energy at a better price, just considering all the dynamics that I've described before. Okay, circular inputs are not just about energy, and this is the most common and the classic one, right? Circular materials, material cycle that can go from a biological cycle, that is biogenic materials. Speaking clearly, it's a material that has a high biological component that make it recyclable, that you can just give it back to the earth because it's basically made of organic material and you won't make any waste. But then you have technical cycles with reusable materials, and which will imply the use of, and which will give you a huge opportunity of a material use, as long as you consider this material as something made out of a raw material that is scarce, that you need to keep the residual value of it. You need to perform a product, design something that can be applied even modularly, and in a adaptable and recoverable way. Let's say joints and constructions have to make possible the future recovery of each piece. So dry construction, like bolts and nails, just to speak clearly. So you're using a material that it is not necessarily biological. That is, you cannot just like leave it in the woods and it will grow again as a tree, but you're creating a component for the society. So you're creating a technical nutrient that can be used again and again in buildings or in different industries. So it's also opening the marketplace here, and not just thinking that a construction material then it can only be used in the construction sector. But as you can see, you can just recover and maybe upcycle the value of the material for another use. And a good example for this is wood for construction that can be recovered and used as furniture, which has would generally have higher value in cost for the second cycle. And here, just to have an example, I'll give you a project where we work together, where we implement all these aspects in an architecture design concept and architecture design product. It's a single family house based and designed under the principle of circular economy. Of course, the design has to be coherent with the purposes. We need to think about user experience again, first of all, and then we gotta make it circular. So the use of each material has to be traceable and reduce the impact of each stage of the construction and each part of the composition of this house. So at the end of life, there won't be almost any waste, since we're using biological or technical components. Of course, virgin materials, because we are in an industry that we're developing, pushing this transformation, but we are not ready yet in the construction sector to be 100% circular. But yes, what we can do is just to be ready for the second cycle. So make it 100% circular for the second cycle and just produce only 3% of waste in this case for this house. Everything else is just revaluable as a secondary material. And another example of this is about products and materials. We have this company that produces cardboards and drywalls out of paper, recycled paper, used and aggregated again into a construction element. So let's shift to another completely different business model, which is sharing platform. Sharing platform, it's a business model already recognized in circular economy literature. Here, we just go with implementing this concept into spaces. Okay, sharing spaces, co-working, co-living, build to rent. This is nothing new. The good part here is that we're using spaces and multiplying the use of space, the function of a space for different purposes, for a different set of people or customers. To do this, the concept is to be flexible and to design the spaces in order to be as much as flexible as possible and to be as much as comfortable as possible in every situation. So you won't have to divide up a space into good and very well illuminated spaces and very bad illuminated spaces, because the second one won't have any value or won't have significant value compared to the first one. So you need to design everything in order to be flexible, in order to be comfortable as much as possible in a universal way, let's say. Other business models of this are concept as sharing warehouses, let's say for Amazon packaging, or sharing parking, for example. There are applications already that allow you to share your parking in a city, in the city of Barcelona, where commuters coming out of Barcelona, they will leave their parking empty. Commuters coming into Barcelona, they will have a parking place. And of course, a very important component talking about sharing platform is technology. Monitoring and organizing and predicting or studying the use of the spaces will help you organize statistically and in a very programmatic way the use of the spaces. And here is an example of an office building of Microsoft in Schiphol in Amsterdam, where they achieved 20% more of space profitability, which is you have 1,000 square meters and you make out a profitability of 1,200 square meters, because you just use better the spaces you have, and you can share it with with a higher number of customers. Then other opportunities of circular economy models in the construction sector are the famous product as a service. You offer a service retaining ownership of that product. A good example of this is one of the first company that introduces this model in the market, which is Philips. That they decided back in the day to sell you light and not light bulbs, and they will take charge of all the hardware stuff, and you will just benefit from the service of the light bulb, which is light. So you can just extend this concept with everything else, with elevators, with finishing, with air conditioners, HVAC and climate control machine. You can convert in a product as a service model almost anything in building construction. And then, and I'll go towards the end of this presentation, lifetime extension, maintenance, of course, and retrofitting, building renovation. You have a product, you use it again, you just improve it. And again, the way and the flexibility of this building will just give you a higher or lower profitability of the intervention. And the last one is resource recovery. That's it. Just let's start from the end. We have, this would be the beginning of the concept of a second stage of a building as material bank. So you will recover materials that have an intrinsic value for a secondary use, but we can start from what we have right now. Let's say we have a lot of scraps, we have a lot of buildings that have to be demolished. And if we think about this in a more considerable way, we can just start before demolishing a building as a whole, just tearing it apart and identifying those materials that are that have an intrinsic value that can be used and revalued in a secondary market. Okay, basically, that's what I wanted to talk about with you today. I just want to end up with some takeaways of this presentation. The one that I have mentioned the last, but I think it's very important, is technology. Technology will help us to identify and help us make this process more profitable and more reliable. Building as a material bank, it's the second one. It's very important because we are keeping the residual value of products in the building up to the end of life. Modular, flexible, and deconstruction and like the disassemblable materials will help us allowing the second to be possible. So materials have to be recovered at the end of life, maintaining their value. Building ecosystem in all the industry, keeping the value, focusing on social value, because this is why we're doing this, and considering that this value have an importance in the financial and non-financial statements of companies and industries. So we can use these concepts in order to increase the value of a real estate investment, of an asset. We can increase it by a lot. We have a lot of opportunities to do that. And this is, in my opinion, the way to push a sustainable business model that will be finally successful. Thank you very much for your attention. Here you go, and whatever question you have on opportunities you want to share, I'll suggest you just contact with me and we can think about this.
Thank you very much, Mauro. It has been a very interesting presentation as well. I think it's quite interesting how from Giorgio that he explained us a product and how, as you were mentioning, a building as a complex product also itself links a lot of other sub-processes. So definitely we will have a lot of discussion later on. For all the participants and attendants, if you have any question, please put it on the chat or in the questions so we can gather and make a final overview of all your doubts and comments to the panelists. Okay, thank you, Mauro. So let's go for our third. If you can stop sharing the screen, Mauro,
sorry.
please. Yes, not a problem. So let me introduce you to our next speaker. It's, sorry. Sorry. Okay, so Victor, now we are going from the city or from buildings to the organic field. So Victor Falguera, he's founder of Akis International, among other companies as well, but he's an agricultural engineer, PhD in agriculture and food science and technology from the University of Lleida, and PhD in engineering and advanced technologies from the University of Barcelona. He's author of more than 40 journal indexes articles and several extension articles as well. He is consultant and lecturer on innovation-based territorial development strategies and technology for the agri-food sector. He has been twice awarded with the National Prize to Excellence in Academic Performance of the Ministry of Education of the Spanish government, and with the University of Lleida Extraordinary Award for his first doctoral. He has been Consular for the Education and Mayor of Albatec, also in Lleida. So, Victor, you have the floor. Let me, so you can share your screen and please begin when you.
Thank you so much for having me on board. First things first, of course. And secondly, I would also like to apologize because I have one of these weird COVID-19 situations that we have nowadays. And I'm locked down with a 4-month-old baby. I don't know if we have much time, so this leads us straight to the point. And what I did mainly is just a summary of the presentation that I had in mind for today. But I hope it will be enough, at least for planting some seeds and to solve some main questions about circularity and the bio-based sector and the agri-food sector. Let me wrap up everything at first, because I don't know if she's going to give us much time. And afterwards, we can expand the issues that the audience wants to, if there's any doubt. So first of all, when it comes to the agri-food sector, let's answer a main question. Do we have a problem in the agri-food sector that may lead to circularity, or it's just a fashion thing that we have to apply in all sectors? Well, so let's take a look at the main figures and the main issues. Food is mainly produced from basic inputs, which are water, land, energy, and other kinds of material inputs, such as fertilizers, for example. And the first number that we have to keep in our mind is that almost 40% of the food that is nowadays produced is wasted. It used to be considered that 1/3 of the food was wasted, but the latest reports say that this amount has been increased in the last years up to this 40% of the food produced. And to put it some additional figures, this means that these 2.5 billion tons of food that is wasted every year mean more or less 10% of the anthropogenic greenhouse gas emissions. So 10% is a lot, especially considering that the final products that are made from these resources and emitting these gases are wasted. And to put it another figure on the table, you have to think that these 4.4 million square kilometers of land that are needed for the food that is only lost at the first step of the value chain on farms represent more or less the area of the Indian continent. So it's quite a lot. We don't have much arable land to waste. So this is a need that we have as a society, because it's not only a matter of resources, of wasting resources, or about circularity or the environment. It's also a shame that 40% of the food that is produced is wasted annually, while we have people that are starving. So it's a problem of the entire system that needs to be tackled. And one thing, or maybe not the figures, but the proportion that is useful to be remembered, is that among these 2.5 billion tons, 1.2 billion is lost on farms, and more or less the same. So we are more or less at 50% of the amounts is lost in retail, food service, and at home. But the thing is, if we start breaking down the problem so as to be tackled and to take advantage of this complex situation, just to develop these brand new business models, which can contribute to solve the entire problem. As you know, we can never address such a complex problem at once. So we have to break down the problem, and afterwards we have to tackle specific things or issues, and most of the time specific issues at specific points of the value chain. So one thing, here you have the main things to be remembered about this breakdown of this food loss problem and this inefficiency of the entire agri-food system. The first is that mainly in volume, we have 50% of loss at farms and at later stages, but the value of these losses increase as the value chain advances. So it's not the same value that we lose for 1 kilo of any product at the farm, or 1 kilo at the end of the value chain, and that is obviously food services or at home. So the gap for business models have also to do with that, with the value that we can recover and with the loss that we can avoid by implementing these kind of new value models. Another important thing is that the traditional use of organic streams for low added value products has been already done in the food sector, in the agricultural sector, mainly for years. For example, the waste from the fruit and vegetables processing industry is applied for animal feed or to develop low value added fertilizers. So circularity is an approach that has been traditionally included in the agri-food sector. But in the last decades, I'd say in the last decades, yeah, more or less in the past 50 to 60 years, somehow we have got rid of this circularity at several points of this value chain. So the main thing about, or the first important lesson to be learned about reintroducing circularity in the agri-food sector is taking a look at what our grandparents did in the food, in food producing and transforming and processing. Obviously, I'm not saying that we have to recover exactly the same procedures, the same methodologies. What I'm saying is that we have to take a look at how circularity was approached at that age, but with nowadays technology and knowledge. And afterwards, I'm going to refer a bit further to this. But the thing is that the supply chains, the value chains, and the stakeholders networks in the agri-food sector are very complex and are very heterogeneous, because at every point we have a lot of different kinds of stakeholders, and this makes the structural changes in the sector very, very difficult. And this is also a thing that we have to consider. And again, what I said before, 2 billion people face food insecurity and 40% of the food is lost. And this has at least to make every one of us think a lot about this problem and what we can do starting at our home individually to tackle this problem. Next, the problems of soil, water pollution, and atmosphere degradation are increasing, and this is a thing that cannot be avoided anymore. And also the climate change is having nowadays already a definitive impact in the way in which we produce food. For example, in some places around the Mediterranean, we have learned to produce food in deserts, provided that we have water. If we have water, we can produce food, and we have learned how to do so in the last years. We are gaining knowledge and expertise on this, but we have to know very, very clearly that climate change is a threat and will definitely be a biggest threat in the next years. So there's a gap also for business models that include this consideration of climate change impact on the food production. And at this point, I'd like to make a brief stop in the presentation, because this is one of the points that I'd like to make very, very, very clear. Please don't blame it on the farmers about the inefficiency of the entire system, about the soil and water and ecosystems degradation, because farmers are the weakest point of the value chain. And most of them, and I can assure you that because this more or less half of my day-to-day work, they are doing great efforts to be every time more sustainable. Environmentally, of course, socially, for their own survival. And that's another thing that we can discuss later in terms of territory management. Who is the best actor throughout the entire world for doing the management of the rural areas? Farmers are, definitely, not the governments, not the public administration. But they are making efforts at first for their economic survival. And this is very, very clear. And this is very easy to understand. So of course, farmers have a responsibility on this. I'm not denying that, but they don't have 100% of the responsibility. And it's, for example, starting from each one of us at home, making decisions on what we buy. And I'm going back to Giorgio's presentation. He made it very, very clear on this. Market is always the key. And obviously, Mauro also referred to that because it's undeniable, okay? Going on, we have another situation that is starting this year to push towards circularity, especially in the nutrient side, in the nutrient loops closing, which is the rise in the price of macronutrients, especially nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium have increased a lot, in some cases more than 200% in only 1 year. So this rise in the price of fertilizers is pushing these business models. So it's an opportunity also to help closing that gaps in the financial means that we have to start every new business model that includes this circularity. Because at this point, I am quite sure that you all already know that this is one of the main threads that we have when we implement a new circular-based business model in every sector, but also in the bio-based and the agri-food sectors. So, sorry, wasn't me. Don't touch this, please. Hey, it's not your time, please. So, how can we tackle all of this? Here's an example. There are lots of schemes like this. This is one of the best known because it's from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation about how to include circularity in the agri-food sector. Just to make it clear about definitions, we know the bio-based economy or bioeconomy as the economic and business models made of organic matter. So when we think of agri-food sector or agricultural production, of course, we're speaking about one branch of bioeconomy. So bioeconomy is nothing new, and circularity is nothing new inside the agri-food sector. But of course, when we talk of circularity, this is a broader concept. For example, we may talk about this taking advantage of the manure streams for producing fertilizers, for example, at different levels, okay? So you can find a lot of these schemes. This is one of them, one of the best politically known outside the sector, let's say. And here you have the interesting summary. So if you are to take just one slide from my presentation today, let it be this, okay? Because this is a summary of some of the levers that we have to push the system towards circularity, or in other words, some of the points that can constitute issues included in your value proposition of your brand new business models, okay? The first thing is, to me, one of the most important ones, which is this cascading value. What does it mean? Imagine that we have a byproduct stream, okay, going outside a farm or a food factory. We usually say that we will always have time to burn things, to set things on fire. What I mean for that is that, can we consider that we are really circular if we are transforming materials into energy? There are different approaches to that. I don't have a clear answer for that question, but I think that the question itself is very interesting. For example, the Dutch have it very, very clear. They don't consider this to be circular. They only consider to be circular if we take advantage of a material stream to manufacture additional new materials, okay? Because you know that in terms of bioeconomy or taking advantage of a lot of organic matter, for example, manure, one of the classical approaches is biogas production, for example. Okay, that's, I'm not saying that we don't have to do so, but maybe before taking this stream to biogas production, we can search for valuable compounds inside the manure, extract them, produce materials from them, and afterwards with the remaining part, produce biogas or other kinds of energy, for example. That's the same way when we use corn to produce bioethanol. Maybe we can take advantage of residual streams from the corn supplies to produce this ethanol, but we could take advantage of additional materials, for example. Well, in terms of closing the loop of nutrients, my two partners today have talked a lot about closing loops, and this is exactly the same thing. And this is one example of what I said before of doing exactly the same things that our grandparents did, okay, but mainly at another scale, at the bigger scale, and with better technology and definitely with better knowledge. And this is what the so-called resource recovery and reuse techniques. And this leads to another point which is very interesting. And I'd say that the pandemic has also helped to put it at the forefront, which is the shorter and closer supply chains. There are very, very interesting reports from a couple of institutions in Latin America analyzing what happened at the first strike of the COVID-19 with the food supply chains and comparing what happened with the short and with the long supply chains. And the main conclusion is that the short supply chains are more resilient. So we have to definitely consider how to build shorter supply chains, not only in terms of sustainability, but also in terms of food security, which is a completely different thing, as you know. So let me at this point go back again to Giorgio's presentation. When he defined the 3 steps of eco-design, he mentioned that the last level was the system change. This is also very important for bioeconomy, and this is occupying, I'd say, most of our efforts in the last years. Because if the entire socio-technical system has to change, we will need definitely changes in the entire chain, and changes not only on technology or on the way that we do business, but also in the social part of how we relate with each other and how we make decisions when we act as consumers. And this is very, very important. And I'm going to refer to this at the very last slide of the presentation. Additionally, these new governance requirements, and especially for those of you linked or working with institutions, you have to be very, very cautious on that. This is a great, huge opportunity, not only for the bio-based sector, but perhaps the bio-based sector is the first to make a great strike on this. Okay, these possibilities to build this new governance, this new multi-actor approach to develop these cross-sector linkages from which these new value chains and these new business models may emerge. Additionally, the increase in the need of protein for human and animal feed is a must. You have a lot of examples throughout the world of people trying to produce protein from different kinds of sources, some of which are not yet legal everywhere, for example, in the European Union, okay? And this is another important thing to consider. And now I'm referring for the next point back to Mauro's presentation. Digital tech helps connecting the dots and is very, very important at all scales, okay? This is very, very important. And digital technologies are helping us to be more successful in implementing these new approaches, but also monitoring what we do and how we do it. And another important thing to remember, and this I hope, and let's put this hope in capital letters, please, that will lead to an entire new opportunity for rural areas in the next years, especially now that the new CIP in Europe is starting to be unveiled, which is the carbon market, the carbon credits, because rural areas are the biggest carbon sinks that we have, okay? Here you have, sorry about this, we are starting to get nervous. Here you have some of the routes that we may follow. This is nothing new, just take a look at that. But what's more important of this slide is the reference. This is a brilliant reference. I definitely recommend you to take a look at this. This reference includes the description of a lot of new business models, okay? That can be applied at different scales of the agri-food sector, but mainly at farms and at the beginning of the value chain, okay? This resource recovery from waste is a very, very interesting reference, and I definitely recommend you to take a look at this. It also includes an adapted revision of the classic business model canvas from Osterwalder and Pigner, okay? But that includes the revenue streams, for example, from the carbon credits market, and at the side of the costs, it also includes the social and environmental costs of the business models. So it's very, very interesting to at least to take a look at that. And one of the examples of the business models extracted from this reference is this one, which is the classic manure to biogas approach, but including this carbon market revenue stream, which is in fact very interesting if, of course, the measures are implemented at policy level. We're not addressing this at this presentation today, but this kind of methodologies have a definite impact also in policy making. And in fact, in Catalonia, we have a lot of interesting examples of how we are taking this approach for example, for the development of the new smart specialization strategy. Some of the challenges that we have to implement circularity in the bio-based and agri-food sector, and not of course the challenges about the general implementation of circularity. So the agri-food sector is very complex. We have a lot of stakeholders, heterogeneous stakeholders at every step of the value chain, okay? And this makes things very complicated, and most of these stakeholders are quite used to operate in a very, very mature market. So you know definitely the circumstances of the mature market better than I do, for sure, okay? You know that we need these financial incentives and instruments to close the economic feasibility gaps. For example, the carbon market or the carbon credits market may be an interesting tool precisely for this, to close these economic feasibility gaps, okay? Just as an idea, but we need further instruments and additional ideas to do so. The technologies that can be must be adapted to the resource constraints. We work with organic matter, which by definition is not the same, exactly the same matter with the same properties throughout the year and throughout the areas, okay, in which we work. At this country, at every farm, at every country, in every area, depending on, for example, the animal feed, the manure streams are different. At every food industry, the byproduct streams are different. So technology to process these streams must be adaptable. And this is a challenge because the setup of costs for these processes are quite high, precisely by this reason. You cannot buy technology and apply it straightforward to your factory. You have to adapt it always, and this is quite complex to do. And in most cases, some of these technologies must also be adapted at small scale, because we need some pre-processing at farms, because otherwise the transport costs for the organic matter streams would make the entire system to fall, okay? Because we would be transporting, for example, water with no value. So we need some pre-processing technology to be adapted to these small scales in farm, okay? As you see so far in the presentation, we need, it's not that we have the opportunity, it's that we need to develop these new business models at each and every step of the value chain, okay? And this leads to the fact that we need to develop new human capital. And this human capital, it's not only to be developed from the technical side of the technical point of view, it's also true and a matter to remember that we need this human capital to be in rural areas. And this is a specific challenge that we have for including these more sustainable approaches to the agri-food sector. And we will talk further later, I hope, to the policies, but policies have to do with all of this. Policy making is essential just to ease and to minimize the risks for the new entrepreneurs. All of you, if you are developing a new business model that can tackle a social problem, an entire society problem, must be supported by policy, at least in terms of who is assuming the risk to develop and to test and to validate this business model. And this is definitely a matter of policy making. And just to finish, a couple of more things which are somehow repetitive. Consumers' prioritization is key. The market is key. We've already mentioned that. And as we need this change, this shift for the entire socio-technical system change, we need new methodologies. We need new approaches. It's not enough by developing one particular business model. We definitely need methodologies to work all together on this. And you have here a couple of tips that I'd like to mention. The first one is that we have to apply new methodologies to drive innovation, to apply this to any sector, but I'd say that with the stakeholder complexity in the agri-food and bio-based sector, this is especially important, which is taking the market pull design processes, which are somehow traditional, to the open innovation processes that are long, difficult, that you need to go back and forth a number of times, that you need to include the quintuple helix actors inside the innovation process. So please, if you go inside one of these processes, be patient. Don't lose your patience. Somehow there will be noise, but you have to handle it and you have to go on, okay? So this is definitely one of the most powerful issues and tools and methodologies that we have to be successful in the long term. And policy making must also support this kind of procedures, because these are not procedures to have a quick win implementing a brand new business model, but definitely these are methodologies to be successful in the long term and to go towards the systems change. And if we talk of a systems change, this is definitely the most powerful tool that we have, which is the shared agenda. And maybe we can discuss further on this another day. Is the best tool that we have to make the impact-driven innovation, the top-down innovation measures with the demand-driven innovation procedures or projects or needs, in fact, that emerge from the territory and from the stakeholders. So sorry about that. Sorry about being so fast and summarized. If you have any doubt, I'll do my best to participate in the debate. Here you have my contact for anything that you have. Once again, thank you very much for having me on board, and for any doubt that you have, I'll be more than happy to answer your emails or your questions in the social media, both LinkedIn or Twitter or wherever we may find each other. So best of luck with the rest of the seminar of the course, and I'm at your full disposal to answer your questions.
Thank you, Victor. Let me tell you that you're the hero of all the audience. So thank you very much. A lot of respect from everybody. And
I enjoy a lot what I do professionally, and obviously I also enjoy this little thing, which is my assistant today. So, but managing both things together is somehow difficult. So I honestly, I deeply apologize for this, but I'm at your disposal for anything.
Thank you, Victor. So let's begin the round of questions. It's very interesting as I was thinking. The three. If you can open your camera, Mauro also. Okay, Victor, if you want to exactly. So basically, thank you, three, because it has been a very insightful presentations. I think that you give us a very good trip from the different sectors that are related to circular economy. I think that it's important to highlight that it's not only about the waste, no, because sometimes it's only focused on waste. No, it's about processes. We have been talking about uses. I mean, the huge amount of the percentage of in buildings, for example, the 60% of the life cycle, it's related to the use of the building. And then this also makes me think about the relevance of the processes and how these complex systems need to be synchronized and to achieve a more symbiosis of the whole ecosystem, especially talking to in a market point of view. And so let me share with you some of the questions that the audience highlighted. So the first one was related on target to Giorgio. It was about which technologies, if you could explain a bit, which are those technologies in industry that could help to reuse waste on industry processes, and how I think the technology, not only for itself, like but also how to monitor these impacts. Another question highlighted, it was about how does the design, what it is needed from the construction industry as well to enable this kind of a reuse of the waste. Because you comment a lot about the reuse of materials, so which strategies or how the architects or managed to do this. So this, I think this was related on how to address the reuse of to avoid waste and reduce materials. So if, yeah, Giorgio, if you want to comment about this.
Thank you very much. Well, of course, technologies are infinite, no, and depending on the sectors and the problems. So we could, I mean, there are a lot of different issues, but in general, for example, in textile, there are more and more interesting solution, no, that linked with natural fibers. For example, no, the more and more companies are able to bring back to the production cycle used fibers, so get back cotton or whatever. And also, of course, with synthetic fibers, there are a lot of industrial processes that are able to produce clothes from plastic bottles or whatever source of plastic. No, this is something that is it's growing. More and more companies are offering this kind of products. Even there are more innovative solutions, such as there are some company, for example, that mixes also the coffee. Coffee pour, no, the waste of the coffee after use, it's also used in some cases to produce textiles. So there are very, very innovative solutions. According to the sectors, there are thousands of innovative solutions.
Thank you, Giorgio. And I think for building sector, because you mentioned about the how do you manage to have to extend the life of materials. So I guess I was thinking also 60% of the time of a building, all the inside, the refurbishment, the renovation that you still have. So it's a machine of eating research all the time. So.
Yeah, I mean, this is a tricky question because we usually answer with a mindset of a product that has just one like production line. You have a product, you process it, and then you recirculate it or you waste it, whatever is your business model. In building sector, buildings are systems. So there are all of this business model working together. So I think the strategy, the first important thing to bear in mind is that the strategy is, I want to say it in a funny way, is to have a strategy, just to focus since the beginning all of these processes. So you have a roadmap of design, construction, maintenance, and deconstruction. And the best tool to do this is to start with a life cycle assessment. With a life cycle assessment, you will be able to identify every impact and every process in the life cycle of your building, and then take your personal consideration related to your to the specific project, because the other thing is that buildings are very different from each other. So you might, I just generally say, okay, the 60% is the operation phase of a building, but probably if we think about a zero energy building, probably it's not as much. And we're talking about an increased importance about material productions or maintenance. So first strategy is to have a strategy. The strategy is basically called life cycle assessment, and then just try to design what are the most important parts of your own life cycle to improve and take measures related to that.
Thank you, Mauro. I think another aspect that the three of you highlighted in a different way, it was how about this aspect, especially from on the buildings and on the products by Giorgio, the ownership. This is strategy as a circular economy strategy that a lot of some companies are driving and boosting. For example, in clothing. Textile products that are even not at the leasing. You don't, as a consumer, you don't buy it and you own it at all. So then you turn back. So as you were commenting about this, for sure we need to the commitment of consumers to change patterns. At the same time, this opens a window where it is opening a window for a different kind of consumption, no? In the sense of the sharing spaces, as you were talking about, Mauro, on building, but also on the sense of ownership of the things. And I think this is crucial in this change behavior. No, I mean we can share. And the product as a service, as Mauro was commenting, and could be also finally linked on how we make this relation with the rural areas that Victor was highlighting, and it is true, because I think that digitalization and the way that we have been since now, basically based on a physical world and the physical consumption of the things, and related with a sense of ownership related to a status, etc. So even this luxury product that you were mentioning, Giorgio, so the added value, this is my point, how do you think that a good business idea could challenge and address a product or a service in order to give the quality and the added value that at the same time address to a new society lifestyle, like we can say, or consumption behavior? Policies is one of the things. I think the three of you highlighted the relevance of policies. Where do you think it's a key aspect to begin? I mean, from the producers or also from the consumption part, the consumers?
Well, this is really a chicken and egg problem. No, we need both, because only offering sustainable products and services is not enough. And if we don't have a demand of those products and services, and we don't have regulations, it's not enough either. No, of course, regulation I think are crucial. No, at the end, because essentially because if a company tries to be sustainable, the competition with the rest of the company is unfair, in the sense that there is an hidden cost, environmental and social cost, that it's normally hidden in all the sectors. And if you try to be sustainable, then it's difficult to compete with the other ones that are not taking into account those costs, those environmental and social costs. So regulation in this sense are fundamental in order to well, put even condition between sustainable businesses and the rest of the businesses that are not taking into account those costs. And of course, the change of behavior, it's crucial, and it's I mean, it's a cultural aspect. No, all societies are raised in a consumption assumption that is completely wrong. So we have to change completely our cultural background. Also, it's a very complex change. No, this is why it's a transition toward a new kind of society. And yes, of course, what you mentioned of the product as a service business model, it's one of the growing trends. Mauro and Victor also mentioned it. As Mauro was saying, that can be applied to any kind of product almost, no? And we can have a lot of examples. I don't know, most of us, for example, have a drill at home, no? And maybe you use it 20 times in your life to make holes in your wall, but then it's there and it's not used, no? So if we think about a product as a service, if a company can provide me a drill when I need it, I will have the most updated one, the best one. No, mine is it's very old, but it's fine. But I only used it maybe 20 times. No? So I could have the best available product and everybody can share it, and the company it's interest to that this product lasts and is used by the maximum amount of people.
Thank you, Giorgio. And so linking to this is my final question. So according to your experience, because of course we are talking about EU policies mainly, but how do you think, as most of our colleagues that are present in the session, they're from different countries from North Africa, especially from Egypt, Lebanon, and Tunisia. So how do you think can be the EU policy framework, like the EU Green Deal, can become an opportunity to not only to well position a product and to trade better on the region, but at the same time to pull the environmental targets that we are aiming to achieve. I don't know if any of you three want to highlight something.
Well, I can start if you want. Definitely, I think this is a major aspect to be considered from Southern Mediterranean countries' perspective, because this is very common. Normally, European regulation, as you said, not only affect export of products, but also are often the basis and the example for national regulations. No, we see it very often. We support policymakers in all the Southern Mediterranean countries in adapting legislation for sustainable consumption and production. And usually European regulation are like the standard for most of the countries. No. Now, of course, the Green Deal and the Circular Economy Action Plan are roadmaps, no, and we have to see it is progressively adapt into regulation. It also offers funding mechanisms that are very important. Unfortunately, often they are mobilized by very big companies, but also SMEs can take advantage of some of these funding mechanisms. And the most important consequence is the regulation part. No, that is something progressive, and at the end, it also affects the rest of the countries, and particularly the neighborhoods. All the countries in the neighborhoods are somehow guided by the European standard.
I think, Mauro, maybe you can explain us your experience from the Green Building Council, that you're working precisely on addressing some of these recommendations for the construction, I mean, architects, designers.
Yeah, well, I think first of all, in building construction, and this is my perspective and my opinion, all the resources that are delivered from Green Deal programs and other programs related to the recovery action, they're not gonna be benefit from regular people, let's say regular businessmen, right? It's gonna go mainly to high and very, very big companies. So this is a fact, and of course, don't expect you at the first stage, at least for how it is right now. It can change, of course. Don't expect you get subsidies for any action unless you're just structure it very well with very big companies. The good things and the most important thing is that these actions that are leading a complete transformation of the sector. These actions are mainly focused on ecological transition, social and digital transformation, and local development, right? So there are three pillars, let's say, of circular economy. So we can just relax a little bit and see and say and expecting huge transformations, because this was one of the biggest limits at this moment. The regulations, activities were not fostering this kind of development. So now we're seeing, for example, a circular economy roadmap in building construction that it's taken over through the building sector. They're asking for carbon neutrality in building sector as well as other sectors by 2050. They're asking for a 55% of CO2 reduction by 2030, and regulation like the construction code, it's upgrading, introducing aspects of circular economy. We are expecting to see not just energy-related regulation, which are like the topic right now in building construction. You can only see this, but then we're expecting to see also waste management protocol implementation as a law for construction. We're expecting to see life cycle analysis also. Like it's in France, it's already like this for public buildings. You need to develop a life cycle assessment, and public tenders and competition are already implementing these requirements for buildings. That is, you need to perform a kind of a life cycle assessment for your proposal. So these are the major changes we're expecting, but I think it's gonna go a bit faster than it was before in building construction, because we remain seated for a long time expecting these changes, and we have the greatest opportunities because buildings are, I think, they can catalyze other industries, and we have the biggest advantage that we just can make this product very attractive under the customer point of view. It's not like Giorgio said before for its sector that he says, and it's true, I'm not saying that he, okay, we need to compete against people that don't follow this rule. For building construction sector, in my opinion, is that we have a sustainable building. It's more attractive, it's better, it's healthier. So we have a better product. We just need to believe that and just be able to make it to make it more mainstream, and regulation are helping that, of course.
Okay, thank you, Mauro. I think that we are arriving to the end of the session. There was another question on the chat. Okay, about the economic feasibility. So sometimes, and I will address the final reflection. So when startups are aiming to incorporate circular economy principles, one of the concerns is how this is going to be economic feasible on the first stage. So what would you recommend prioritize when integrating any of the circular principles that you mentioned on the different sectors?
Well, let's see. Let me think about this. Well, I think well, you need to prioritize customer experience. that's it. Is that you need to make a product that is a good product, and then you can compete in that market. The good thing is that maybe focusing on healthy spaces right now could be a good the first topic I would address right now in buildings. Make healthy spaces doesn't only mean make good air quality. It means also to have more comfortable spaces, more productive spaces. We talk about office buildings, for example, spaces that can be better performs in terms of productivity. So you tackle also the human capital expenses of a company, which is way higher than the energy consumption bills, for example. So if we start with this, we're already making a very interesting product. In the end, the answer is to take just to value in terms of euros or dollar in an economic way, all these benefits we have. So right now, building construction sector values real estate in euros per constructed square meters. I think if we add other variables like health, operation cost, profitability in office buildings, residual value, if we add these numbers in euros in the investment cost sheet, we might probably have a more interesting figure and help help this transformation in a more objective way, and thinking about real estate market language, which is excellent. Okay.
Thank you, Mauro. Giorgio, do you want to finalize something?
Well, concerning economic viability, as we said, on one hand, there is this challenge that assuming environmental and social costs that normally are hidden, it's a threat for economic viability. But at the same time, also eco-design, eco-innovation are opportunities to be more viable at economic level. No, we saw that at process level, eco-innovation and eco-design can systematically lead us to reduce materials, reduce energy, reduce waste. So also the cost related with this waste treatment, and etc. So we can reduce cost in a systematic way all over the life cycle of the product. And also at product level or system level, we can have ambitious eco-innovation solution that can put ourselves in a situation in which our product will be more competitive than the traditional ones, or generate systemic changes that will allow us to be more competitive in the market. I will put in the chat the link to the platform so that you can register to the platform, and there you will find eco-design tools. If you have just an idea for the green business model development, in the green business model development tool, there is an eco-design tool for your ideation stage, and there is a specific eco-design tool also if you already have a product or service, and you can systematically assess your environmental performance at all the stages of the life cycle. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think we have a very nice session, so I think that we can close, and we aim to keep in touch with all of you and to maintain the feedback on the update upcoming days. So thank you, and have a nice day to all.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much, and congratulations to Victor with the added value of taking care of his baby.
Thank you. I'm sorry, it's lunchtime here, so.
Thank you very much.
Victor.
Participate in the discussion. Thank you.
Bye.